Hey, I'm back. I have had some medical misadventures I need to talk about just a hair. I still am having issues. I'm still swollen. I'm still everything else. I went to the doctor last night and they did a quick COVID test and they say I don't have COVID. But I had kind of a head knocking because the doctor was a brand new, straight out of medical school, young gal who just gave me this cough syrup, cheap ass cough syrup for my problems. Said, oh, you need a chest x-ray because of your asthma. Well, no crap. It's always chest x-ray and blood tests when I go in there for this stuff to determine if it's just my asthma or what I've got going on more. She didn't do either one. She talked about it and said, well, we don't have a radiologist and we don't have a, hey, good morning, sweet bee. We don't have a radiologist. We don't have a phlebotomist. We're not calling them in for this. And I'm feeling just like a tiny bit better. I'm trying to explain about how in Costa Rica at the medical clinics, off time, you get these straight out of medical school people who don't understand from reading your chart what you deal with. I think the kicker came when she told me to use my asthma meds that I use in my nebulizer, one vial every 12 hours. I just about damn near fell on the floor when she came that. Hey, Claire Bear. Hey, Small Town Jewel. Hey, T King. Hey, Midwest Ginger. Hey, Renee. I just about fell on the floor. And I told her, I said, there are times when I have to use I can't even make my fingers work, 3 vials of my asthma nebulizer. She says, you can't do that. Only a young doctor going by the book would come up with the stuff she gave me for. So I had a rapid test, said I did not have COVID. I got cough syrup in order to use my nebulizer about 1/12 as much as I actually use it when I'm this sick. So I have a taxi booked since our car's in the shop. And at noon today, I'm going back to the clinic to see Dr. O or Dr. A, the experienced doctors there who knows that I use 3 vials when things are really rough. So that's my rant about Costa Rican medicine this morning. It's wonderful until you encounter one of these straight out of medical school by the book guys that goes, okay, I'm going to do A, I'm going to do B, I'm going to do C. And she failed to do 2 of those things because she couldn't call in a worker after 6 o'clock, which I know is BS. I've had x-rays of my chest there off hours too. So anyway, that's where I am. I want to talk a little bit this morning, and I got to pull it up, about the ladies of patriarchy. Why would I be talking about the ladies of patriarchy? Well, they are quite a mixed bag, okay? There is one whose name I am not going to mention only because her supporters they're just out there. I'm just going to come right out and say it. They are just out there crazy. I have had more stalkings coming from that particular fan base than anyone else. And it's interesting because that particular fan base, they happen to be the ones that have the most, how do I say this in a kind way? They seem to believe the most non-factual everything, non-biblical everything about everything under the sun. All you have to do is follow this woman on Twitter and Facebook, and you'll see that much of what she says comes straight out of her own rear end. Like this morning, she was posting about women not taking their husband's last name. It makes them disobey God because they're supposed to take their husband's last name, when that's pretty obviously a bunch of BS if there ever was one. Hey, Marianne. Hey, Carolyn Wilson. So I'm not going to say her name because I don't want her trolls coming here, and I don't want them spamming me or calling me filthy names or spreading lies about me. I have one that every little thing I say on Twitter, even in jest, she takes it she extrapolates it out to the worst place possible. And she's a friend of Without a Box of Kleenex. So there's that, which I don't understand at all, because Without a Box of Kleenex also talks about this lady. So people have been posting things that were said in this lady's super secret chat room. And I just wanted to read you some of those so you can understand a little bit about what the mindset is there, because it's pretty crazy. And they've been all going on and on and on about contentment and about not wanting things from your husband. That's been the theme this week. And I just have to read these and bust them if possible. Here's one. I'm not saying the names because I don't want anybody getting all offended. The Lord is my / our shepherd. I shall not, quote, want. The Holy Spirit is currently teaching me, empowering me to better understand wants from needs, to stop expecting my husband to know my wants, which when denied used to put me in a self-centered mood. Anyway, peace has been the result, praising God for showing us the way to peace. And the reason I'm reading it like that is because she's lacking a majority of any kind of punctuation or anything like that. Hey, Renee, so it's crazy some of the stuff that these women will come up with. You know, wants and needs are definitely a different thing from each other. They definitely are. And sometimes your want is your need. Sometimes your need is your want. But where I have a problem with what they're saying is it's okay to have wants. It really is. It's not okay to let your wants rule everything about you, which I think in some of these fundamentalist evangelical Christian households, women do confuse their wants and needs sometimes. And they expect their husbands to read their mind. You know, I learned years ago that when you expect your husband to read your mind, you know what's going to happen? You're going to be horribly disappointed. Husbands don't do that. Men operate on a way different level than women do. And I hate to say it as a feminist who loves men. Men and women are just different. Now, can we learn from this and understand each other? Hell yeah. I think that makes sense. Like I've learned with my husband, I have to tell him, I have to explain to him what I want instead of just immediately throwing it out there and thinking he's going to read my mind or understand my hints. Example. Oh, here's a friend coming. I'm dreadfully sick. I'm not going to be able to do much of anything getting ready to the house because I've been up in that bed. And I'm about to get back up in bed after I do this. And I go to the doctor's. So I had to tell him, look, you're going to have to sweep. You're going to have to mop. I will go through and dust and straighten as much as possible. But this is going to fall on you. This is your friend and I am sick. And rather than screaming, losing my mind, expecting him to read my mind, I just have to come up and calmly tell him, hey, this needs to happen, or hey, I expect this. Hey, I need this. Hey, like we agreed not to get each other Christmas presents this year. And then he turned to me and said, I need you to get me a subscription of the Washington Post, which I'd gotten him last year. Small town jewel, it is what it is. It's the asthma. I'm sure this is the asthma. But I'm also sure I need a chest x-ray because I do have congestion at the bottom of my lungs. So I said, okay, I can do that, but I'm going to need a pair of earrings from my favorite jewelry store here in town too. So if we're going to do gifts, this is what I want. And this is what we're doing. I'm not going to go pick up my earrings, pick them out until after the new year, after the crowds disappear here. Because right now in Tama, you cannot drive. It's like bumper to bumper traffic. You see every day on the Tamarendo lists on Facebook, people begging for places to stay for almost nothing. And you're laughing and going, this is the busiest week of tourist season, the busiest one. And you're asking to rent a place for very little. So there's that. So I'm going to go back and read some more of these because these are pretty horrifying, some things that these women have said, expanding upon this. You're not supposed to have wants or needs. But here's something really funny from the chat room. The lady I'm talking about who's running all this recently had shingles and followed by COVID, the C word. One of her people was telling her she should take the horse dewormer, ivermectin, and her response was, women are easily deceived. I'm glad she shot that one down. I just don't like the way she did it. It's just, oh, pretty crazy. Okay. I got to find the ones I was going to look at the other day because it was making me laugh. It was so bad. Skipping over the war on culture, 41 years of marriage, crazy sermons. Okay, I've already read the one where the Lord is our shepherd. Let's pull some other ones up from that same list. Yes, we deserve nothing. Most days I cannot comprehend how God can even look at humanity as we are despicable. Oh my. Does it not say we were made in the image of God? It does say that we're made in that image. Small town Jewel, we're too old to be putting up with getting the wrong gift. If we say what we want, and that's fine. And this woman, she doesn't understand. We're made in the image of God. How can we be despicable and despised, even if we don't do exactly what her version of God thinks we should do? I just look at that kind of thinking and I'm like, how do you even get up in the morning thinking that? God tells us our hearts are so deceitfully wicked, even we can't comprehend how despicable we are to God. Oh, brother. Okay, I'm trying to get back and find where I was last time with this. Okay, I think it was past the despicable mother. Living in sin. Here we go. Was this it? I like this by Rebecca West. It is something one of my followers has shared that I absolutely agree with. It says, people call me a feminist whenever I express sentiments that differentiate me from a doormat. That is so true. Okay, and here are some other ones. Many in our culture believe they deserve things. We actually deserve nothing but God's wrath. But thankfully, the God of our universe, who created everything, sent his only begotten Son to earth as a baby to live the sinless, perfect life since we never could. He was a sacrificial lamb, took the penalty, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I have some big problems with that. And I had big problems with this. I heard a sermon on Christmas Eve that said virtually that. It was like reading the scriptures about the birth of Jesus, all the things that led up to it. And it was like, okay, this is straight out of the Charlie Brown Christmas. And this is good. And then they took a hard right turn into, we are despicable. We deserve nothing more to be thrown into a pit and burned alive. And if you don't accept Jesus right now, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to burn for all time and eternity. How you're going to burn. So hearing this sermon, the second I started hearing that, my brain switches off. I'm like, start thinking about a piece I'm working on or a sewing project or something that is not burning in hell, because I moved past that theology years ago. I don't put up with that anymore. If I go to a church where they're talking hell and damnation on the one time that you should be talking about peace, love, and joy, I don't know what. the pastor didn't understand. There are people that is the only time they're ever going to go to church is marriings, burials, and Christmas with family. And that's going to be the only chance they have to hear a positive message. So they go ahead and they turn it to the most negative thing they can. I'm sorry, I'm so full of drugs right now. So full of drugs. Yeah, I don't go to those kind of churches either. And I turn my back on them. But we were visiting a friend's church for New Year's Eve. This was not our regular church, thank God. And somebody turned to me after finding out where my husband and I go now and said, how can you stand to go there? It's all just feel good, loosey-goosey stuff. And I think translation, that means our pastor never talks about hell and damnation. I really think that's what it is. Okay, I'm scrolling down. I'm looking for this. And I'm not finding it, which makes me wonder if some of this was taken down. Because now I'm straying into the part where this particular cultural enforcer has COVID. And shingles. And I know that's going back too far. So I'm thinking a lot of that stuff is gone now. But there was a lot of things about how despicable we are, how we deserve to be burned up. There was a whole lot of things about how women who don't take their husbands' names are sinning, about how if you're not putting all of your needs last to take care of his, that you're sinning. Having negative thoughts is sinning. There's a whole long laundry list of things that we're sinning against your husband and your God because you aren't falling down to doormat, is what I would call it. Sounds like the Puritan sermon, sinners in the hands of an angry God. Yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. And there are a lot of people in Quiverful that they really live for that. And the putting down of women, the despising of women, the treatment of women is less than. And you're supposed to put placed on a happy smile and just take it. I don't know about you guys, but I am not there. And even when I tried to be there, I was not there. During my Quiverful days, I struggled mightily with that, with being submissive enough. Yet they are all posting, what I can't find is they were all posting about how submissive they were and how much joy they found in being submissive. If that works for you, have at it. But experience has taught me that doesn't really work. The only thing you're doing is you're suppressing all of your negative emotions. You're suppressing all the bad stuff you're feeling, and you're glossing over it to put on a smile. You can look back to Michelle Duggar for that one. She does that expertly, except that now Michelle Duggar seems more checked out in a way that seems to indicate that she has the 1,000-yard stare, that she is so traumatized that now she has just completely disassociated herself. And I think that's probably the only way that would work well, is to disassociate yourself from your entire body, your thoughts, and everything. Just go off in your mind and be thinking about something else, something pleasant, something like me thinking about buying yarn or buying art supplies or whatever. Hey, Dances in the Rain. So, Rena, I run out of voice and content, because apparently that's all been taken down from the chat room now of this one person. Whenever she realizes somebody in the chat room has narked them out and put stuff that they are saying elsewhere there, it does sound perverted, does it not? It sounds like there's some kind of sexual thing there. And if you look at the writings of Doug Wilson, Mark Driscoll, and others, where they're pushing this, women are, my husband's home. Women are penis homes, or what was the other famous one? Doug Wilson was saying, women submit Women receive, men conquer, men implant, men take. That's the biggest pile of BS I've read yet. I believe in respect and companionship, not submission. The same here, Rena. I believe that more strongly now than ever because, like I said, we tried to do it their way back years ago, and it didn't work for either one of us. Didn't work for me, didn't work for him. Just didn't. We're not wired that way. I mean, I am wired the way I am, and it is. And that's not to say that people's roles in their marriages all stay the same. I grew up in the United Pentecostal religion back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I got married like I was supposed to. Had a baby at that time, and were given books, a total woman, yes. And did it not work out? I suspect it probably didn't. But my point I was going to say is marriage is a sliding door, I think. It's flexible. There are times when your needs are going to change so drastically. Like myself, past my last stroke and having difficulty sweeping because sweeping involves balancing, and I can't do that yet. I can do a lot of things, but that is one of those things that is beyond me. That I have to make other arrangements for it. I have to ask my husband to step up and do stuff. Oh, thank you, Dances in the Rain. My yarn fun thanks you. I'm going to go blow that here in Tamarindo at the wonderful new yarn store we have. Plain truth about child rearing. My daughter was 6 weeks old and cried in church. They wanted me to slap her and tell her no on her bare leg with 2 fingers. I couldn't hit my child. Oh, that is not good. Hitting a baby is never good. Any religion that tells you to hit a baby is not a true religion. I'm just going to come right out and say it because that's just twisted. One thing I have been able to do since I've been sick, I've been sitting down and forcing myself to write 3 hours a day. And I've been able to do it. I'm making grand progress on my book about my time in my old church. And my husband has been nicely waking me. He's been reminding me, not waking me up. He's been reminding me of things that happened in the past like that I've totally forgotten. It had been so long. Rumor had it years ago, Jim Bob said relations with Michelle was like throwing a hot dog down a hall. I remember the rumor from Free Ginger, Rena Rue, but I don't believe that is what he said at all. Very unsubstantiated. I think that was something they came up with. That was a parody thing. And I laughed over that too. If it was true, then why was he still having obviously relations with her? Because they've had many more children since that rumor came about. I remember that. Hey, Christoph, and so where that leaves us is just trying to figure out where we are on this. I don't believe that the kind of submission that these women are preaching, and there are a lot of them that are preaching this. Debbie Pearl preaches this in her book, Created to be a Helpmeet. She talks about this insane level of submission. I've seen her use it as a weapon against Mike a couple of times in some of her writings, like the time that she offered Mike lovely horizontal fellowship if he did the dishes, because he was leaving his pot and his bowl in the sink after making oatmeal, and by lunchtime it had turned into concrete. So he had a hard time washing it out. So from that point on, he started rinsing his bowl and his pot that he was making oatmeal in. I've seen her use that against him and various other things. You can look at Nancy Campbell. She preaches the same thing, but a little less toxic than some of the others. Nancy seems to be recently fixated on making your table up with tablecloth and candles and flowers and all that. I feel bad who think they have to be submissive. Probably why I'm divorced. Don't let no man tell me what to do. Christoph fan? Yeah, that's kind of how I am to an extent, except that sometimes I just sit back and listen and just kind of inwardly snicker because I know something being bandied about is a bunch of BS. I will say my husband's church does not preach anything remotely like that. I'm happy with that because that is just a bunch of, you know what, it just is. if you look, there's even one part in Paul where it says, yield to one another. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. You can be gracious enough to do that. How to be, yeah, you're right. Okay. How to be a sex slave, how to be a sex slave and manipulate the crap out of your husband. Because that's one thing I have noticed with all of these female cultural enforcers, even Michelle Duggar, they have their ways. They do not just automatically smile and let everything go down. They have their own ways to get what they want, to manipulate their man. And most of these relationships that I've seen going into Quiverful in my old church, it was almost always a woman that wanted to change a man, hauling him in there, saying, okay, Lord, I give up. You change him. I just have to sit back and smile. And I've never seen that work. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, that worked perfectly on so and so and so and so. I've never seen that work. Never, 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 not in all my years there, none of that. I'm going to be talking about that kind of crap in my book in great detail. And my husband keeps reminding me of all these great stories, like a story I've talked about before, the stone kid that got an exorcism. There was that happened. We had a higher percentage of people having affairs and justifying it in the weirdest, most biblical ways. The word help me gives me anxiety because the funding uses a weapon against women. That's exactly right. That is exactly how they use it. It is a weapon for them. And if you are not submitting the way each individual cultural enforcer thinks you should submit, guess what happens? You get written off as a sinful feminist. And what they don't understand about feminism, the whole point of feminism is not to tear the family apart. It's not to come up with X, Y, or Z. The whole point of feminism is to make sure that women get the same pay as men, that women have the same opportunities, can join the military or become engineers or whatever, that women enjoy the same rights as men, including voting rights, under the Constitution. That is 100% what they are for. Not busting up the family, not making everyone divorce, not making everybody go to work and leaving their kids in daycare. They completely, deliberately misunderstand and use it as a fear-mongering bullet point instead of what it actually is, the ultimate care for women. It does sound like The Handmaid's Tale. It really does. I don't know. Is anybody else excited to see the next season of The Handmaid's Tale? I'm kind of hoping that Serena Joy gets sent back to the colonies. No, not the colonies. Sent back to Gilead and receive her punishment because she betrayed Fred. And while I'm glad she betrayed Fred, she also is guilty of so much herself that when she betrayed Fred and thought she was going to get away with it, I was kind of like, oh, no, 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 no. She should be punished for all the things she's done. Fred got the ultimate punishment, which, while I'm not a big fan of violence, I could fully understand why all the women that tore him up did it. Okay. And why am I suddenly having all of these people trying to put these kind of messages here? Okay. It just really interrupts the flow. We have people doing that. I've got to say this, at least we haven't had anybody coming here lately with a submission of women type name who wants to argue about that stuff. I mean, it's just gotten completely, I know I'm being spam botted, and I just go ahead and delete those people and ban them, take down their crap. It's just ridiculousness. I think so too. It's definitely Russian. It's definitely Russian. And you can see the names. The names are Russian. They're written in Cyrillic. So I'm sure this is Russians. And this is their stupid little thing that they're trying to do, which I don't quite get, but hey. I'm going to go ahead and go. I'm losing my voice. I'm losing my train of thought. Don't let the female cultural enforcers of Quiverful fool you into thinking that your marriage is going to be fixed. Oh, thank you so much, GGMA Ruth. You are your doll baby. You're giving me more yarn money. I love it. Thank you. I have a question, not on a specific type of family with this belief system that you recently reported on. Go for it, Small Town Jewel. I'm more than willing to answer that. I know a lot about the families, but I don't know everything. But no, I have not. And I'm very concerned about the baby, especially since, the mother has pulled down all of her social media. It's just really disturbing. I understand why she pulled down her social media. Oh, thank you, Rena. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. Small Town Jewel, it's disturbing. I don't blame her for pulling down her social media, because her social media sure painted a picture that looked like neglect from here. It looked like neglect and possibly even abuse. And I'm sure that's why everything was pulled down. Nobody I know has seen or heard anything. The baby's name is not popped up as deceased on any memorial site. So there's that. So I haven't heard anything more. I've been just disturbed and praying for that family, praying for that baby. The baby will be a year old in early January. Nobody seems to know what's going on there. I haven't seen anything, but now that you mentioned it, I'm going to do a little more digging again today as I get time between writing chapters of the book about the kid that got exercise, and my poor son watching all of his friends sacrifice their Pokemon cards into a great pyre started by the pastor's wife. And some of the other just absolutely absurdist things that went on there were as well. It's very disturbing. Thank you for answering. I hope you feel better soon. Thank you, Small Town Jewel. Hinaru, that poor, precious baby. And that's one last point about Quiverful I have to make before I leave. When you have babies like a Pez dispenser, I've seen so many times when the individual one-on-one, eyes on the baby, small child, growing children is lessened. There's just no way around it. When you have one person taking care of 12 people, some things are going to get delegated and some things are going to fall by the wayside. And that's a tragic fact. In the old days, people would have these huge families to work their farms, number one, and number two, because the mortality rate of infants and small children was so high. You could almost understand it in those days, and there was no birth control. But in our day and age, it seems a bit disingenuous. I mean, there are always going to be those people that want to do that. But again, I think that it creates these situations with the mothering that turn tragic. And even like in the Duggar family, where she was doing, what do you call that? The buddy system. And she was handing off babies as soon as they're weaned to their older sisters. It's just tragic. It adultizes children who are in no way, shape, and form ready to be adults. It robs them of their childhood. It puts those babies at risk, because a child is not an adult. I don't care what they're saying. Children are not adults. So, and it robs the child of the childhood. To me, that's the biggest thing, because you have to have childhood. You have to play and do these different things for your to have regular development, to all that. And if you're robbing a child of that ability to have those kind of things, you're doing them a large disservice. What about your son's Pokemon cards? Oh, oh. Jamie, that's a good point. I don't know. I'll have to think on that, but I think it would probably be whoever the oldest son is who's not incarcerated. Christoph fan, I'm going to tell my story, my one last story before I go. This is a story I've written about in my book in great, great detail. One Sunday, we went to church as usual, And this was like late 90s, early 2000s, maybe. I think it was late 90s because it was right around the time of Y2K, because our church was all verklempt about Y2K. I was kind of sitting back saying, this is really a stupid thing to be irritated about, because I just don't believe that's going to be as bad as what they're saying. And turned out it wasn't. But I had actually worked, so I knew how unlikely it was that the whole world was going to fall apart. So what happened was, this Sunday, my son came up to me and he hugged me hard after children's church. And I said, what's going on? And he wouldn't tell me. So on the ride home, he finally told me. He said, I am so glad I did not bring my Pokemon cards to church. And I said, why would that be? Because my son was all about the Pokemon cards in those days, to the point where I would go down to 7-Eleven on the day they got their shipment in to get his Pokemon cards for him. I had a friend who was working there who would tell me when they were getting their shipments. Her son and my son were thick as thieves. They were good friends. So this was a good way to make my son cooperate with the high grades, keep your room clean thing, was the Pokemon cards. They were a very attractive carrot for him. I said, why are you glad you didn't bring them? Well, it turned out that somebody in the congregation, I don't know who, had found a ministry that swore that Pokemon cards were a slippery slip and slide straight to the devil, that it was the liberals indoctrinating children into Satan worship. So this person did made copies, copied the website, made copies, and ran off to church with it. It was satanic panic. So they went into satanic panic right away. And at children's church, they talked about it. They talked about idols and all of that, and things that can lead you to Satan, things you want to be careful of. And they told all the kids to pull out their Pokemon cards. And almost all the kids there had Pokemon cards with them because, hey, Claire Bear, because they were doing once children's church was over, they were back to those boys doing some sharpish wheeling and dealing, trading for cards they didn't have, throwing off their extras. So this was just something that the boys in the church were really, really into. So every kid pulled out their little Pokemon cards and were holding them. And then the pastor's wife told them to tear them in two and then tear them in two again and throw them in the metal trash can they were bringing around. And because these kids were conditioned to always obey authorities, always, they did it. My son told me they were all crying and carrying on. And I noticed when children's church let out and the kids came in the sanctuary, there were quite a few that were sniffling and red-eyed. So they all threw their poor Pokemon cards in this big metal trash can. The pastor's wife carried it outside with them, poured it on the ground, and started a bonfire. And then they all held hands around the bonfire and prayed to break those evil demon Pokemon spirits. I shit you not. That is exactly what happened. And it opened the door for my son and I to talk about things like conspiracy theories, satanic panic, and all those other things. I told him, I said, I don't believe the cards are satanic. I think those people are just uneducated and very isolated. So they will believe any kind of dumb rumor, just like they were believing that the candy factories that made candy for Halloween brought in Satanists to pray over the candy. Their satanic prayers that each child that received the Halloween candy would be a night of Satan or something silly like that. They did that stuff routinely. That was one of the things I really had a problem with. And that time I did go, I went and I talked to the pastor's wife and said, look, this is just not right. Please don't do anything like this ever again. And she was like, oh, Satan, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, you're violating those kids' rights by making them throw away a possession. You don't know what their parents do and do not believe about this stuff. And you are enforcing your opinion on them. And so it was kind of a standoff between the two of us. No, he never did see the church the same way again. He realized from that point on that authority was not necessarily to be followed. We even talked about that. We talked about that. We even talked about in the Bible when people didn't follow authority. And it was a standoff. Neither one of us were willing to back off from our beliefs, but she never once, ever again, forced a child to throw away a treasured toy in children's church ever again. That was the one and only time that anything remotely like that ever happened. And it was, to me, it was highly disturbing because this was something these kids loved. And it's just cards. It's not like it was carrying some kind of satanic curse or anything. I grew up in a satanic panic town in West Memphis. 3 trials were held there. Terrifying. Oh my goodness. That would be terrifying. And years later, a lot of the satanic panic things that they were throwing a fit about have been actually proven not to have satanic things. And so it was with the Pokemon. I mean, and Pokemon cards are still a thing. And I started thinking about this because I found my son's box of Pokemon cards. It was one of the things that got delivered here that was supposed to go to him in DC, but he didn't pick them up before our stuff got shipped down. So I have his Pokemon cards. They're an old Bart Simpson lunchbox where the handle is all broken off. It's all dented and dirty. But there's a sticker on the front, a peeling sticker of Bart Simpson juggling lunchtime. And Seymour Skinner is staring at him. So I kind of laughed. So the box has this symbol of rebellion in it. And it's filled with a rebellious thing from our church, those stupid cards. Cabbage Patch Kids was the same way. From the devil, get rid of them, laugh out loud. Those people are kind of nutty. No kidding. Yes, a lot of people said that about Harry Potter. It is just silly. So now you know the silly satanic panic. And this thing went on over and over in our church. But most of it was stuff like, don't use Procter & Gamble products. They have a satanic symbol. It's like, no, that's not at all what that symbol is, what the symbol means. Or don't use Lysol. If you use Lysol, everybody in your house is going to die of cancer. We had those things happen routinely, at least at the beginning of the church, except for that one. Footloose pastor community. Christoph, and here's the thing. The pastor didn't always sign off on these things. I had gone and talked to the pastor about it, who said, that's not right. I'm going to talk to my wife. His wife was insisting, yes, it was that way. So there was that. And then the pastor got into demon removal at the very end. I'll have to tell a tale about that next time. I do question the monster drink symbol, not going to lie. Christoph, and there are things that you're going to look at and say, yeah, maybe that is not what I want. That might be this. But you're not pushing it on anybody else. And you're right, those Cabbage Patch Kids do look kind of possessed. They definitely look weird. I never had desire. None of my kids did. Thank God, thank God. In fact, my daughter, when she was 5, used to wake up having nightmares because that was right around the time the panic was that there was some kind of Cabbage Patch Kids that you could pull the string and they would talk or move their mouths or whatever. And they were eating little girls' hair. My daughter woke up having nightmares from that more than once with those Cabbage Patch Kids. Because I used to say, when I was 5, my biggest fear was getting my mother off the porch before anybody said she was passed out. And other things. And my daughter's biggest fear was that the Cabbage Patch Kid was going to eat her hair. It's quite a bit of difference there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go now for real this time. Y'all have a good day. I'm going to look at the Collins kids and see what's going on with that poor child. I'll talk at you later.